You thought you would feel something, anything, hope, longing, maybe even pain. It is Valentine's Day, and everywhere around you, people are celebrating love, celebrating partnership, celebrating being chosen. And you thought this day would trigger you. That it would activate all the old wounds about not having your twin flame, about still being separated, about watching another year pass without the union you were promised. But you feel nothing, not sadness, not hope, not even the familiar ache that used to sit in your chest when you thought about him. Just flatness, numbness, a kind of emotional exhaustion so deep that even a day designed to make single people feel their singleness cannot penetrate it. And you are wondering if this means you are healing, or if this means you have finally given up, or if this means something is wrong with you. Divine Feminine, what you are experiencing is not wrong. It is not giving up. It is not spiritual failure. What you are experiencing is completion, not the completion the spiritual content promised, where you and your twin flame finally unite, but a different kind of completion, the completion of your nervous system's relationship with waiting, with hoping, with organizing your emotional state around a future that has not arrived. From a psychological and spiritual perspective, this emotional flatness on Valentine's Day is not numbness. It is regulation. It is your system finally exiting the chronic state of activation it has been in for years. It is your body saying, I am done waiting for external validation to feel whole. I am done measuring my worth by whether someone chooses me on a day that commercializes love. I am going to walk you through why Valentine's Day hits differently when you are emotionally done, what this emotional completion actually means, and why this is not the tragedy it might feel like. This is liberation. This is your nervous system finally choosing you. And that choice, while it might feel like loss, is actually the only thing that was ever going to set you free. Section 1. Why Valentine's Day activates the wound of not being chosen. Valentine's Day is designed to celebrate romantic partnership. And when you are in a twin flame dynamic, when you are separated, when you are waiting for someone who is not showing up, Valentine's Day becomes a mirror. It reflects back what you do not have. It highlights the absence. It makes the waiting visible in ways that hurt. For years, you have probably experienced Valentine's Day as a painful reminder, a day that activates your wound around not being chosen, around being left behind, around doing all the work and getting none of the reward. You see couples celebrating, and it triggers the question, why not me? I have done the work. I have been patient. I have held space. Why am I still alone? And that question, that comparison, it sends you into a spiral. You check his social media to see if he posted anything. You scan for signs that he is thinking about you. You interpret synchronicities as messages. You convince yourself that maybe this Valentine's Day will be different. Maybe this is when he will reach out. Maybe this is when the universe will finally deliver what you have been waiting for. But this year is different. This Valentine's Day, you feel nothing. The trigger does not activate. The comparison does not hurt. You see the couples and you feel genuinely happy for them. Or you feel nothing at all. You do not check his social media. You do not look for signs. You do not spend the day hoping he will reach out. You just exist in your life without the emotional charge that used to consume you. From a psychological perspective, this shift means your nervous system has decoupled your worth from being chosen. For years, Valentine's Day triggered you. because it activated the core wound that your worth is determined by whether someone wants you, whether someone sees you as valuable enough to choose, whether someone publicly claims you. But when that wound is no longer driving your emotional state, when you have internalized that your worth exists independent of being chosen, Valentine's Day loses its power. It is just a day, a commercial holiday. It does not determine anything about your value or your future, or whether you are lovable. From a spiritual perspective, this emotional completion on Valentine's Day is a milestone. It is the moment you stop outsourcing your sense of wholeness to whether someone else validates you on a specific date. It is the moment you reclaim your power from the cultural narrative that says, love is only real if it is celebrated on February 14th. Section 2. The exhaustion of caring whether he remembers. For years, part of the pain of Valentine's Day was wondering if he would remember, if he would reach out, if somewhere inside him there was still enough connection, enough care, enough recognition of what you shared, that he would acknowledge the day, that he would send a message, that he would show some sign that you still matter to him. And every year he did not reach out felt like confirmation that you do not matter, that the connection was one-sided, that you cared more, that you have been waiting for someone who has moved on and forgotten you. But this year, you do not care if he remembers. You do not care if he reaches out. In fact, if he did reach out, if he sent some generic message about thinking of you on Valentine's Day, it would probably irritate you more than comfort you, because you are past the point where breadcrumbs feel like anything other than what they are: insufficient, insulting, evidence that nothing has fundamentally changed. From a psychological perspective, this shift from caring whether he remembers to being indifferent is huge. It means you have moved from anxious attachment, where his behavior determines your emotional state, to secure attachment, where your emotional state is internally generated and maintained. When you were anxiously attached, you needed his validation. You needed him to remember. You needed him to reach out, because his remembering meant you still mattered. It meant the connection was still alive. It meant you had not been waiting for nothing. But when you are secure, when you are emotionally complete, you do not need his validation anymore. You know you matter, because you matter to yourself. You know the connection was real, because you experienced it. You know you were not waiting for nothing, because the waiting taught you something essential about yourself. And none of that requires him to remember you on Valentine's Day. From a spiritual perspective, this indifference is sovereignty. It is you finally standing in your own worth without needing external confirmation. It is you recognizing that his memory of you, his acknowledgement of you, his validation of you, these things are irrelevant to your value. You existed before him. You will exist after him. And whether he remembers you on Valentine's Day or not does not change the fact that you are whole, complete, and worthy, exactly as you are. Section 3. When being alone feels better than being in limbo. Here is another shift that happens when you are emotionally done. Being alone stops feeling like punishment. It stops feeling like something you are enduring while you wait for your real life to begin. It starts feeling like peace, like stability, like the actual preferred state compared to the alternative, which is being in a dynamic that keeps you in constant uncertainty. For years, you probably told yourself that being alone was temporary, that it was just the separation phase, that once union happened, once he became ready, you would finally have partnership. And that narrative made being alone feel like waiting, like your life was on hold, like you were in a waiting room instead of actually living. But when you are emotionally done, when you stop waiting, being alone shifts from temporary state to chosen reality. You are not alone because you are waiting for him to show up. You are alone because being alone feels better than being in a dynamic where you are constantly destabilized by someone else's inconsistency. From a psychological perspective, this is a profound shift. It means you have recalibrated what feels safe to your nervous system. Before, connection, even unstable connection, felt safer than being alone, because your attachment system was organized around the belief that aloneness equals danger, that you need someone to feel secure. But when you have built enough internal stability, when you have created a life that feels full without a romantic partner, your nervous system learns something new. Aloneness is not danger. Aloneness is peace. And connection that destabilizes you is the actual threat. So being alone on Valentine's Day stops feeling like evidence that something is wrong with you. It starts feeling like evidence that you have standards, that you are unwilling to settle, that you would rather be by yourself than be with someone who cannot meet you with consistency, presence, and genuine capacity for partnership. From a spiritual perspective, this is divine feminine energy in its highest form, not waiting to be chosen, not hoping to be completed by someone else, but standing fully in herself, whole, complete, available for partnership, but not desperate for it, willing to be alone indefinitely if the alternative is compromising her peace. Section 4. The grief of realizing what you were actually waiting for. Part of why you feel emotionally done on Valentine's Day is because you are finally allowing yourself to grieve something you have been avoiding. You are grieving the realization that what you were waiting for was never going to arrive in the form you imagined, that the twin flame journey was not about union, it was about awakening, and the awakening included realizing that the person you thought was your destiny might just be someone who activated your wounds so you could heal them. This grief is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is the slow acceptance that the story you told yourself about this connection, the story that made the pain meaningful, might not be true, that you might have been in a trauma bond, not a twin flame connection, that you might have been waiting for someone who was never going to become capable of meeting you. From a psychological perspective, this is anticipatory grief. You are grieving the future you thought you would have, the partnership you believed was destined, the union you were promised by spiritual content. And that grief is necessary, because until you grieve what is not going to happen, you cannot fully invest in what is actually available to you. Valentine's Day, with all its emphasis on romantic love, brings this grief to the surface, because it is a day that represents what you do not have. And when you are emotionally done, you stop avoiding that grief. You stop using hope to bypass it. You just let yourself feel it. The loss of the fantasy, the death of the story, the acceptance that this is not going to unfold the way you believed it would. And that grief, while painful, is also liberating. Because once you grieve, once you accept, you are no longer in denial. You are no longer waiting for something that is not coming. You are here, in reality, where you can finally start building a life based on what is actually true instead of what you hoped would be true. From a spiritual perspective, this grief is sacred. It is the death of the ego's attachment to outcome. It is the release of the need for the story to end a certain way. It is the surrender, not to his timeline or to divine timing, but to what is. And what is might not include him, and that has to be okay. Or you will spend your entire life in a holding pattern. Section 5. Why emotional completion does not mean the connection was not real. You might be worried that feeling emotionally done means the connection was not real. That, if it was truly a twin flame connection, you would still feel the intensity. You would still feel the pull. You would still be activated by Valentine's Day. And the fact that you feel nothing means maybe you were wrong. Maybe it was not what you thought it was. But emotional completion does not negate the reality of what you experienced. The connection was real. The recognition was real. The depth was real. What is also real is that real connections can serve their purpose and complete. They do not have to last forever to have been significant. From a psychological perspective, the intensity you felt was not just about soul recognition. It was about attachment activation. Your nervous system was activated by someone who mirrored your wounds. And that activation felt like destiny because it was so powerful. But powerful does not mean healthy. Powerful does not mean sustainable. Powerful just means activating. And now that the activation has settled, now that your nervous system has regulated, the intensity is gone. Not because the connection was fake, but because your system is no longer in crisis mode. You have processed the activation. You have learned the lessons. You have healed the wounds. And the connection, having served its purpose, no longer controls your emotional state. From a spiritual perspective, some connections are catalysts, not destinations. They come into your life to wake you up, to show you your patterns, to force you into transformation. And once that transformation is complete, the connection fades, not because it was not real, but because its job is done. The twin flame journey was never about getting the person. It was about becoming yourself. And if you have become yourself, if you have integrated the lessons, if you have healed the wounds, the journey is complete. Whether he is in your life or not is irrelevant. The point was never him. The point was always you. Section 6. What to do with the emotional flatness. If you are feeling emotionally done on Valentine's Day, if the flatness is there and you do not know what to do with it, here is what I want you to understand. Do not try to reignite the feeling. Do not try to make yourself care again. Do not interpret the flatness as something to fix. Just honor it. This is your nervous system telling you it is done, and that completion deserves to be respected. Use this Valentine's Day differently, not as a day to mourn what you do not have, but as a day to celebrate what you have reclaimed, your peace, your stability, your freedom from organizing your worth around whether someone chooses you, your ability to be alone without feeling broken. From a psychological and spiritual perspective, this is integration. This is what it looks like when the work is complete. Not dramatic, not intense, just quiet, regulated, whole. And from this place of wholeness, you can finally ask yourself a question you could not ask before. What do I actually want? Not what does the twin flame narrative tell me I should want. Not what would validate the pain I have been through, but what do I genuinely want for my life right now? Maybe you want partnership. Maybe you do not. Maybe you want to focus on other things. Your career, your creativity, your friendships, your purpose. And all of those answers are valid because your life is not on hold anymore. Your worth is not determined by Valentine's Day. And your future is not contingent on whether someone finally becomes ready. Here is your integration task. Spend this Valentine's Day doing something that honors you. Not to prove you are over him, not to perform independence, but because you genuinely want to. Take yourself to dinner. Create something. Spend time with friends. Do nothing, whatever feels true, and notice how it feels to live from your center instead of from the wound. If this message gave you permission to honor the emotional completion instead of fighting it, leave a comment with this affirmation: I honor my completion, and I choose my peace. And if you know someone who is feeling emotionally flat on Valentine's Day and judging themselves for it, share this video, because the most loving thing you can do is help someone see that emotional completion is not failure, it is freedom. And that freedom is what they have been working toward all along. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and watch the next video, because what comes after emotional completion is where your real life begins. Not the life you were waiting for, the life you build from wholeness. And that life is more beautiful than any fantasy could ever be.